Cushing's Bookshelf, episode 19, Gogol's Lament. And welcome back to Cushing's Bookshelf. I am Nicole Cushing. This is my bookshelf. And this week, our title is In Search of Lost Books by Giorgio van Stratan. So what is this book about? It's basically a work of literary history about missing manuscripts. Manuscripts to books that either we know existed or are rumored to have existed, but the book was never published because the manuscript vanished. And my favorite example in this book is probably the story of Nikolai Gogol's second volume of a planned trilogy, of which the book Dead Souls was the first entry. So he wrote a novel called Dead Souls, but he only, and that book did come out, but what he was planning to do is a trilogy based loosely on Dante's Divine Comedy, and Dead Souls was supposed to be the Inferno part of the trilogy, and then he was going to do a rough equivalent to Purgatorio, and then another rough equivalent to Paradiso. And apparently, Gogol worked on this and worked on this and worked on this, and he was a perfectionist. And he went through drafts and drafts and drafts for years, apparently. And allegedly, he directed for that manuscript to be destroyed shortly before his death, burnt, in fact. And so it raises some interesting questions, like why would Gogol do this? And one of the answers that von Stratan suggests is the idea that perhaps he was trying to do something that at the core of his soul he was not able to do, that perhaps what would have been necessary for Gogol to write an equivalent of the Divine Comedy would be for him to trace a character's redemption, and that in the heart of Gogol's soul, he was just way too dark for that he was too much of a pessimist, and he was trying to make something work that just was not going to work. And I find that really, really, really interesting, just in terms of an author knowing who they are and the advantage of knowing who you are as an author and what you can do and what you can't do and knowing your limits. And, my heart goes out for poor Gogol there, trying his little heart out to give his characters redemption when, that's not how Gogol's mind or soul worked. There are other stories in here too. Another one that's fascinating is about a Sylvia Plath novel that supposedly, allegedly, is lost. One that never came to publication, called Double Exposure. And the real interesting tidbit about that is a part at the end where the author mentions that in 2022, some papers of Sylvia Plath's that have been stored at the University of Georgia will be unsealed and available to scholars. And so the question is could it be that this lost novel is in those papers that are going to be unsealed in 2022? Or if, even if that's not the case, what other papers are there that are going to be unsealed that could possibly reveal some more about that amazing woman and her amazing work? And those are just 2 of the 8 stories here. Lots of good literary history and a little bit of literary gossip, sprinkled through its pages too. So definitely worth getting. It's not the be all end all, but if you're looking for a fun book to just kind of explore, this is a good one to do. So until next week, take care. Later, y'all.